Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the economics of Hollywood, or not just Hollywood, we're talking about the wider movie industry, the wider entertainment industry, producing pro-globalist, anti-straight white male, anti-Western civilization propaganda, because it's not even a torrent, it's a fucking flood. And everywhere you go, there's propaganda of every imaginable size, description, and at every level coming at you from all sides. That's anti-white male, anti-Western civilization, and pro and in support of anything that humiliates, undermines, and tears apart the social cohesion and social fabric of the Western world. So let's have a look at that. Now, there's been a lot of people that look at every movie, that woke movie that loses money, or woke streaming service, or that Lord of the Rings thing that Amazon did, looks at that and sees the losses that it makes and the non-success, and goes, well, these guys are going to have to stop making those movies that lose money because they can't afford to do it, and no business can stay in business if they're engaging in money-losing operations. Now, in a normal world, that would be fair enough. You can't go out losing money here. What business can survive that? Well, the answer is, in a competitive capitalist marketplace economy, no business could survive that. But that's not what we're living in at the moment. Increasingly, the economy that we see is a controlled economy, and with very limited market forces in operation, and in some areas, none at all. And just some simple examples: if there's any upward wage pressure in anywhere in the West, then there's immediate increases in peasant migration from India and China and Africa and so on, from the surplus peasant populations of the world. There's an immediate bringing in of those people, whether it be as migrants or on extended work visas or anything at all. So, but the reverse is true, that when the elites want to increase the price of something, they create artificial shortages. Not natural shortages, not market-driven shortages, not organic shortages, but artificial shortages, whether it be of real estate, or of shares in the stock market, or of anything at all. Fuel, petrol, petroleum, gasoline, natural gas. They'll create an artificial shortage using things like, it's the Putin price hike. And they'll create these artificial shortages and then artificially force up the price of goods. But either way, when they're selling something for a profit, they create artificial shortages that increase the profit. If they're having to go out and buy resources to do business, laborers and workers as an example, then they'll artificially depress the price. So it's a controlled economy in that sense. But coming back to the losses that the movie industry makes. Now, if you look at all the companies that are involved in these money-losing operations, that they are all very purposefully and very willfully and with great premeditation, they're producing pro-globalist propaganda. That's what they're doing. That's their job. They're no longer entertainment companies, in the same way that our politicians are no longer our representatives. They're globalist employees. And so these organizations that were once producing entertainment are now producing propaganda for the globalists. And they don't want to lose money. So this is sort of more or less the conversation that takes place with the globalists. Well, we can't produce these sort of movies because no one really wants to watch them. That no one really agrees with this nonsense that we're going to put in there. So the movie's going to lose money. So we need your help somehow. Now, that's when a vast array of resources and support services come into play. So the government that's globalist controlled knows that these movie companies or movie production houses are going to lose money on these woke, crappy woke bullshit movies. They're preaching bullshit propaganda and all this sort of thing. They know they're going to lose money. But what they'll do is they'll give them big donations a lot of taxpayer money will be shoveled into them under some guise of promoting the local movie industry, or that's they'll use some bullshit guise or front reason to do it, but then they'll shovel a lot of taxpayer money into it. Or they can do things like give what's called accelerated or additional write-offs. So say the movie loses, say for example, it cost them $100 to make it, but they only get $10 at the box office, for example. They've only made, they've lost $90. That's before promotions and other costs. So the losses would be higher. So what the government will do is say, look, what we'll do is we'll give you 2.5 times write-off. So that they've lost $90 there on that, making that movie. So the government will say, well, we'll give you 100 and 2.5, so 2.5 times 90 in effect. So $225 write-off, which you can then apply as a write-off against other profits. So if you've got profitable movies and you've engaged in profitable business undertakings, will allow you to then write off pretty much all the tax you would owe on that other profit, so that you actually come out in front at the end. So in effect, the taxpayer has paid for that loss-making movie that spread the propaganda. Because, but make no mistake, the globalists are absolutely determined to keep on pushing that propaganda, and the loss-making, the losing money, all that sort of thing. It's just collateral damage. Just a bit of collateral damage, and they're staying, laser focused on this propaganda. Just keep on pumping it out, so that either the government shovels money in under some bullshit pretext or other, taxpayer money, or they give them accelerated write-offs so that they can defray the losses against taxable profits that they have elsewhere. Now, the other thing, of course, is that most of these companies that do this, businesses that do this propaganda, are have multiple divisions and multiple bits of satellite of businesses that are run, some of them offshore, head office and that sort of thing, for tax arbitrage reasons. Arbitrage meaning you write the loss off on one side against a profit on another that may be overseas. So that's called the generic term for that's arbitrage. So they can do that. Now they may have 3 divisions of the company that are making serious profits, and they would have to pay that in taxes to the government anyway. But if they make a loss-making movie, which is great propaganda for the globalists and very much approved of by the globalists, if they have a loss-making movie, those losses can be written off against the taxes and the profitable, the taxable profits that they've made in other divisions. So they're not really losing money here in the direct sense, because if they're going to lose $100 on making the movie, they can take $100 off their tax payment they would make to the government. So again, the government in essence has paid for this, or the taxpayer has paid for it. And with these multi-divisional companies, where one division may be making very, very handsome profits, it's got a nice monopoly somewhere, and then they can afford to do this loss making. Amazon is a classic case in point. It's a very profitable company, but in their other operations, when they made this Lord of the Rings disaster fiasco that nobody wants to piss on, and it's losing money, they can take those losses and use it to avoid or defray tax that they would pay to the government, into the government coffers through their other divisions. So they're able to do that, balancing and writing off tax and this sort of thing. The other thing that is happening with the movie making, not just movie making, but streaming services, wherever you see pro-globalist, anti-white propaganda, wherever you see it, you'll find this. It's either a tax write-off scam, or it's money laundering through NGOs. So an NGO will be given the job of making a documentary saying that all white people are Hitler, for example. And there's plenty of that propaganda around. So all white people are evil, racist oppressors. No one ever in the world, ever in the history of the universe, ever enslaved blacks, except for white people, and they're all Hitler. So that's sort of absurd, ridiculous, insane propaganda. I mean, the most grotesque untruths, but that's the sort of propaganda we see. see today. Now, so say a government-funded news station or information services station, call it what you will then contract a NGO to make the documentary that all white people are Hitler, all white males are Hitler. So now that NGO is a charity. So any money that's given to them is a charity, which becomes a tax write-off. So various front organisations that are very globalist controlled, they will give money to the charity, which means that they can defray that that's a tax deductible payment. So they pay money to this fake charity. It's not a real charity, it's a fake fucking charity. Pay money into that. Then they can avoid paying tax. So hey, we gave that charity $1 million. So there's $1 million of tax. Now this company doesn't have to pay, or $1 million of revenue that becomes untaxable. So again, the taxpayer is funding it. Now the NGO makes the movie, and they or the documentary, and they then sell it to could be the ABC in America, the BBC in Britain, the ABC in Australia, or the CBC in Canada, or anywhere. They sell this insane anti-white, anti-Western civilization so-called documentary, which is not a documentary at all. It's just lies and horrible untruths from beginning to end. But they sell that to, but the profits they make are then recycled back into paying an army of consultants, which are again globalist flunkies and stooges. And because the NGO is a charity, they don't have to pay tax anyway on this. So so again, the taxpayer is in effect paying for all this, whether it's direct or indirect or through various veils of subterfuge. So the NGO sector is very active involved in supplying key personnel or various resources or all the resources to do these hideous propaganda documentaries. Now, because they're a charity, again, they don't pay tax, and any money paid to them is a tax-deductible donation. But they're not charities at all. They're screaming political activists, and the globalist-controlled Western governments know this. They know it. It's clear as the nose on their face. But they permit and allow and indeed propagate this army of NGOs that are supposed charities, and they're very much involved in this making, producing, creating the propaganda that we see. So these are the means that they do. So this idea that, well, 2022, these companies like Disney lost market capitalization and this and that, that'll teach them, that'll show those motherfuckers they'll stop doing this crazy woke propaganda. No, they won't. It's all paid for. If they lose money at the box office, then in the back room it gets paid for, whether with tax write-offs or some other means. So no, they're not losing money as you would think. Now, I don't think they set out to let's hope this movie loses a lot. I don't think it's that. I think they've got a job which is to spread propaganda. It's essential, vital propaganda, as the globalist controls would see it. And let's have lots of gay, lesbian, let's have lots of transgender, let's have proper feminist propaganda, because these are the things that will undermine the fabric of Western society, which will make it easier for us globalists to just walk straight in and take over, because everyone will be so demoralized, no one will lift a finger to stop us. So that's what's happening. You're being a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.